Welcome back to Better You. I'm your host, Cindy Thompson. And do I have a treat for you? A couple of weeks ago, I had Tyrone Jefferson on my show, and we were talking about the history of American music and the influence African Americans has had in that music. But we ran out of time, so I begged him to stay so that we could finish this up because we have so much more to talk about.
Cool.
Thank you for staying, and I hope it's okay if you stay a little longer.
Absolutely.
Oh, it is?
I'm yours.
You know, before we broke off last time, we had just finished talking about the music before the 60s. Mm-hmm. Now, when we come back to the 1960s, how did our music change and why?
I go back to this phrase that our music reflects the conditions of black folks. Mm-hmm. So in the 60s, actually, a lot of people may associate the 60s with the Civil Rights Movement, but the Civil Rights Movement started way before that.
Yes,
again, because Dr. King had to have somebody whose shoulders he stood upon and, you know, that kind of thing. So, but Motown was hot then. A lot of the, on the jazz side, you start having more funky jazz. Cannonball Adderley has a album that he dedicates to Jesse Jackson's Rainbow Coalition. And it's jazz. But, you know, it's that funky kind of thing black folks love to listen to.
Is that what Miles Davis started too?
No, Miles Davis has a different little pedigree. You know, son of a dentist and...
I was a newborn during that time.
Oh, okay, cool. But, you know, but Miles, you know, classically trained. I mean, went to Juilliard.
Huh.
Yeah, Miles Davis was no joke. But he learned from a lot of the jazz cats. So Miles Davis is the predecessor to a Wynton Marsalis. Think of it that way.
Okay.
Play jazz and play Brandenburg Concerto, both with ease. I don't know if Miles could do that, but Wynton could do that. But Miles Davis went to Juilliard, is my point. So that's no joke. You don't get into Juilliard being a little half-baked musician.
So it makes a difference if you're a trained musician, or it comes naturally, in your opinion?
Oh, it makes a difference, yes, if you're trained. But I know a lot of cats that can play. They don't have any formal training. But if I were to ask them, let's say Cynthia is a classically trained musician and has a good ear.
Well, I do, and I am.
Okay, cool. So that means I could give you something and say, Cynthia, just give me some grease. And that means for me, play what you feel, you know, your natural black church, you know, how you grew up. And then I may say, Cynthia, this needs to have sort of a Chopin. A young lady said, have you played Chopin before? I said, no, babe, it's not Chopin, it's Chopin. But, you know, but if I say, Cynthia, play a little Beethoven or some Chopin, you might be able to do that if I put the music in front of you. So both are both are desired. What bothers me sometimes is when black folks got a great ear, but they can't get a gig playing the Motown music, let's say, that's traveling, because all that's written. And you don't have time when you're in Charlotte for 2 weeks, next week you're in Virginia, and then D.C. I need Cynthia, who's got a great ear, but can't read. I need Cynthia to play the music. So sometimes we black musicians don't get the gigs that we should get because our ability, either we can't read or our ability to read is not at the level that allows you to go into a studio session, have the music in front of you, and play it right first time.
So let's go back to the 60s. That was during the time the Civil Wars, Vietnam War was going on. What kind of music were we listening to at that time?
Music that reflected the times. Think about it now. Marvin Gaye's song, What's Going On? In fact, there is a story about Berry Gordy not wanting to release What's Going On because Berry Gordy was about making money. But Marvin Gaye said, we need to write a song about the times we live in. War. You know, everywhere you look, people going off to war to fight for what? I mean, Viet Cong never called me the N-word, you know, that kind of thing. So we were living in those times where people were writing music about where we at. Black and Proud, James Brown's piece. I mean, there were similar pieces of music that came out in the 60s, for me, that had a message in the music.
You know, let's back up and talk about Berry Gordy. He had a big influence on African American music today. How did he get started?
Well, the story is he was a songwriter himself and was a marketing man. But his songs didn't garner the type of money he thought he should receive. You see, because back then, people were stealing. I was trying to think of a nice word, but people were stealing music from black folks. Black folks many times were trying to put food on the table. This is just one example. For example, one example where black folks said, "Look, I'll sell this song to you for $50." And the guy, the publisher, may say, "Fine, here's $50." They take the song, make a hit. Well, the black man or black woman never saw any residual income. The song could have been a mega hit. There's several songs by Elvis Presley that are like that.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow. It's probably because they didn't understand the business of music. Do you think that's why?
I think that's a big part of it. They didn't understand the entire process.
But Berry Gordy sort of understood the business of music.
He understood it well because he was writing songs for Jackie Wilson and others. He even had a hit. Berry Gordy wrote Lonely Teardrops. But he said I read that he didn't like the amount of money he received in terms of royalties. So he decided to start his own company with $800 and a dream, they say. You know, the rest is history.
The rest is history.
Right.
Do you think that was a good or bad thing, him starting Motown for
I think it's a great thing.
Okay.
I think more black folks ought to go in the business for themselves. Too often, I think musicians don't do their homework in terms of how the music industry works. They're always waiting for the phone to ring so I get that record deal. But record deals, many times, you got to read the fine print. Sometimes people are so happy to get the deal, they don't read all the fine print for that 15-page contract that says anything you write, Cynthia, I own. I'm in the position now of the record company. Even though it may be your sweat and tears. But when I call you and say, I'm going to give you a contract, a three-year contract with 1-year options or whatever, I say, but I own you now. So whatever you write, you got to give me 3 records, by the way. So we're going to push the first one. But if that doesn't sell, and all this is in the contract that you haven't read, because you're just so happy about I'm on CBS, I got a record deal. Okay, cool. I can name a lot of people who got that record deal on CBS or Sony Records now. And first record, mediocre. Well, it's a business. CBS says, well, Cynthia Thompson, well, it did lackluster. We're not going to push her. In fact, put her second and third album on the shelf. Now, you get upset because now you right back in Charlotte. You're not doing the tour anymore, but you got a record deal. Now, had you started your own thing, you wrote the same music, if it was such a hit, you could market it regionally, possibly, because you don't have the big bucks like a record company to do a national distribution. But if it's such a great song, you can let it break in Charlotte and then go regional, you know, up to D.C., down to Atlanta, then start going west to Nashville. You do it yourself. It takes you longer. And that's what I chose to do. But you're not talking about me.
Yes. Well, on that note, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk some more about Motown and the Motown sound.
Good.
Okay?
Cool.
Oh, those boys are much too much. Those boys are much too much. We got the spirit. We're hot. We can't be stopped. We got the spirit. We're hot. We can't be stopped. We're going to beat them and bust them.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life.
Let's get a little bit rowdy. R-O-W-D-Y.
Take time to be a dad today. Call or visit fatherhood.gov to learn more.
You realize that 49 million Americans struggle with hunger? That's 1 out of every 6 Americans.
These people are around us every day. They're our friends, they're our coworkers, their kids go to school with our kids.
Sometimes we're not even aware that they're struggling. This problem is closer than you think. So is the solution.
Play a role in ending hunger. Visit feedingamerica.org/hunger and find your local food bank.
G-Morning, sunshine. Wakey, wakey. You up? What'd you dream about? Me? JK. Text me back. I'll keep texting till you wake up. Are your parents home later? Is this something I did? Exclamation point, question mark? This isn't a joke. Hello? Text me.
Welcome back to A Better You. I'm your host, Cynthia Thompson. I'm here with Tyrone, and oh my God, Tyrone, you have really opened my eyes to our music. So many things I didn't even know about.
Great.
From our first show to this one. Now, Motown is a special record company, and why is it so special?
I think because of the talent that Berry Gordy and Smokey Robinson were able to put together.
Smokey Robinson? What did he do?
Smokey Robinson was instrumental in convincing Berry Gordy to even start a record company. Right.
And what else did Smokey do at this record company?
Well, he actually managed a lot of the early acts. He had his own group. So, between Smokey Robinson and Berry Gordy, I learned with this production that Smokey Robinson was very instrumental in the early years of Motown.
Because he wrote quite a few songs.
He wrote a lot of songs.
Oh, a lot of songs.
A lot of songs, right.
Were all of these songs hits or no?
No, not all of them. But again, you only need one song. You need one so that your children's children never have to worry about money. You only need one.
Huh.
A million seller, you see, if you own the song and you have the rights in the publishing company, you own the song, that's a copyright. That means the money that's generated from that goes to the writer of the song and the publisher. But suppose you're both.
Ah, so you get all the money.
That's right. So Berry Gordy had Jobette Music, the publishing company, and I'm sure he got parts of the writer's credits. So if they had, and this is conservative, but if they had, let's say, 50 million sellers, the money for those songs goes to the writer, let's say Berry Gordy and Smokey Robinson, and the publishing money goes to the publishing company, Berry Gordy and Smokey Robinson.
Wow, so that's how they made all that money.
Absolutely.
So tell me, if they made all this money and they had all these artists, did the artists singing those songs, playing on the songs, did they make money too?
Now that I don't know, but my guess is the answer to that question would be no. Because many times a record company, and I don't know enough about the inner workings of Motown to say Berry Gordy didn't treat his folks or didn't give them a piece of the pie. I don't know enough about that, but I know from experience, modern day, like I say modern day, from the 1990s to present, most publishing companies will ask you to give up your publishing and your copyright so that they own it. They'll promote you, but they own the music.
We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to jump forward to the music of today.
Cool.
Okay?
All right.
Because I have a feeling you have a lot to say about that,
I
too.
My life is full of statistics. Thing is, I could have dropped out of school and become one myself, but I didn't because I had people that believed in me. Here's another statistic. 7,000 students drop out every school day. That's one every 26 seconds. It's time that students know that we believe in them.
Inspire a student and share your message of support at boostup.org.
Since I got adopted, I've learned a lot about these humans.
I know. I mean, check out these two. It's Flirt City over here. I think she's getting his number.
Nice.
Your human's got some sweet moves.
Takes after his dog.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
Welcome back to A Better You. I'm your host, Cynthia Thompson. I'm here with Tyrone Jefferson, and man, oh man, you have so much information up there about our music today. But I was thinking about, right before we came back on, about how do these artists really start? How would you say would be the starting point for the majority of black artists out there?
My guess is that the majority of the black artists in the R&B genre got their start in the black church. That'd be my guess.
That would be your guess?
Yes, because so many of them, Aretha Franklin, Luther Vandross, Sam Cooke, you can just go on and on.
And on.
Right.
So let's talk about our music today. Let's touch on the early years of rap music. Where do you feel like that music came from?
I always have the same answer.
I know.
It came out from the social economic conditions of the day. So, and again, I'm not very up on the history of rap in terms of its inception, but I was living in New York when Public Enemy was doing his thing. In fact, I recorded on one of their albums, Apocalypse Now. So, Hank Shockley, the producer, indicated that, well, they called me in because of my association with James Brown. They wanted to have some things like that. But the music that Chuck D and those cats were doing reflected black folks' anger with the system. And it was a message in the music then. Now, I don't know how we transitioned from, you know, Chuck D and Public Enemy, and again, I'm not hip on the names of some of these artists, but, you know, when my kids were growing up, and I would look at BET, Black Educational Television, and I look at all the brothers doing this rap, using all these horrible words. They had on fur coats and suits, and the girls had on bikinis.
Yes.
And for my little daughter, I said, "Baby, what kind of thing is this for you to be watching? Why doesn't the girl have her clothes on?" You know. And then it's my understanding that a lot of record companies wanted black people, young black artists, to talk about shooting cops and killing and liquor and drugs and the N-word, you know, as opposed to something positive. And that should tell you something right there in terms of the mindset of the record company is about the almighty dollar. I pledge allegiance to the dollar kind of thing versus, you know. So,
with the uproar that's going on in our country right now with white police officers shooting black kids right now, do you think our music is going to change? Because you keep saying it's a reflection of what's going on in the country right now. Do you think our music is going to change?
I do. I think we'll probably hear less modern music using derogatory terms and songs that are addressing a sign of the times. However, what we're going through now is not new.
This is true.
So police brutality on people of color has been happening for a long time. It's just we live in this information age now where everything is instantaneous. So we now know about Ferguson. We now know about Baltimore like that. You know, when the little girls were bombed in Birmingham, we didn't have the internet. So it happened on Sunday. I heard it Monday morning, getting ready to go to school on the radio. You know, but the same kind of thing.
So do you think our music is going to change?
Well, I think it will change. Yes, it will change. Now, how? I don't know. Like I said earlier, I think we may start using less in the music, in the lyrics especially, derogatory terms. And, you know, I have my own process.
And, you know, I think it's starting to slowly go that way with the Freedom song from the movie Selma. And Pharrell has a new song out called Freedom. So I see that change coming now where we're taking more pride and we're standing up for what we think is right and what's wrong.
But see,
in
the
our
other
music.
thing that may be that is that some of these young black artists own their own rights now. So that's a different thing. Jay-Z might have got his start one way, but now he's a mega zillionaire or something. So he owns everything. He can call it the way he wants. Some of these other artists, like I said, it only takes one hit to make $1 million. So why not take that $1 million, invest it into your own record company, so now you have creative control over your own artistry. And I see that happening because the one thing I do like about these young people is that business acumen. Whether you learned it on the street selling crack, or whether you learned it in the boardroom selling your CDs. They understand if I own my product, I can sell it myself, and I keep all the money. I don't have to break off the record company. I don't have to give them anything. I own it. I like that about these young people. That's a good thing.
That is a good thing.
That's a good thing.
So tell me, we've talked about the music here in America and how we have influenced that music. Let's kind of go back and talk about the role that Charlotte had to play in music today. Did they have any role to play at all in the music from, let's say, the 60s up until now?
I have a personal story, so I can't speak like I can about some of the other things. I grew up here in Charlotte. I started playing trombone in the 7th grade under Leroy Augustus Page Sr. The black side of town had two major music teachers, Johnny Holloway and Leroy Page. Those were the two. And they were real teachers. They taught us music, not black music. In fact, West Charlotte used to play in the Christmas parade here every year. And the crowds were always ready for us to do something black.
The dance.
The dance at the square. One year, I forget which year it was, Mr. Page says, we're not going to do the Boogaloo at the square. We're going to play a John Philip Sousa piece, really hard. Michael Porter had the piccolo part, and we killed it. We rehearsed the stuff out of it. We killed it. Now, so it was we played it. But after the square, we broke into Black and Proud.
After you got a couple of blocks back.
Right, because we always had a crowd of people following us, when we did that. So I learned a lot of things at Northwest Junior High School and West Charlotte. So when I went to A&T, I did major in music, even though they tried to get me to do that. I majored in engineering. But when I went to Berklee School of Music, the entrance exam was stuff, and this is no joke, the entrance exam was stuff I learned at Northwest. For example, Mr. Page used to play a chord on the piano. Ba da da. He played together though, not singing like I did. He said, "Is that major or minor?" 7th grade. And we would say, we really didn't know, but he taught us that. Fast forward, you see, 7th grade until I was 29. So fast forward 15 years, the entrance exam to Berklee College of Music was a tape. And the guy said, now we use this little test to determine how you're going to be placed in your class. They play gong, gong, gong. Is that major or minor? I said, this is Berklee School of Music. I learned that under Mr. Page in the 7th grade.
Wow.
So I placed high in my entrance. In fact, they gave me a little scholarship. But I keep telling all these cats here, you went to the same school I went to. This is nothing special. I went to Berklee, sure, but I got in based on what Mr. Page and Mr. Holloway taught me. Holloway, when I was in Mr. Holloway's class, it was the choir, the orchestra, and Mr. Page, I was in the band. And they didn't take any junk. And if you practiced, you made an A. If you didn't, in fact, both of them would probably be in jail now, because if Cynthia didn't practice, Mr. Page would snatch your horn, play it for you, and then throw the horn back at you.
Oh my God.
Donnie Thompson one time missed. Mr. Page threw the trumpet back. It bust his lip. We all saw blood, and we said, damn, I'm gonna play my part, right? Now, see, a teacher would go to jail today.
Oh yes. You'd be on Channel 9.
Oh, yeah. But see, and when we went home, we said, Mama, guess what Mr. Page did? Da, 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 and bust his lip. Mama said, well, he should have practiced his part. That's where we were back then.
Wow.
Amen.
I've had so much fun with you.
Thank you.
I want to ask you one last serious
Yes,
question. Maybe a couple serious questions. How do you feel about our music today? You haven't really said, but how do you really feel about our music?
I am frustrated, which is the reason I started my own company. I'm frustrated with what I hear on the radio. Because it doesn't show the beauty, the tenacity, the history of our people. I used to tell my kids when they were growing up, and I still have the same thing. I say, if I were a Martian and I just came down on this earth and I turned to black radio, I would think all y'all are interested in is sex, cars, and maybe drugs.
Money.
Money, for sure. And we're so much more than that. Those things might be all right, but they're not the end all, you know what I'm saying?
This is true.
And we got to understand where we came from. So I would prefer to have songs that have a message in the music. So my kids used to say, I said, what about the OJs and all the stuff they used to do, and Stevie Wonder, Living for the City? But my kids would always say, well, Dad, didn't Marvin Gaye write a song called Sexual Healing? I said, yeah, but he also wrote, What's Going On, Mercy, Mercy Me. Just start going down the list, So it has to be balanced.
So what is the answer to make that change to where we get the message of us being proud of who we are?
I think all of us can do our part. I've started a nonprofit to try to help young people learn about black history because that's what changed my life. Going to the white school from 12th grade, I think allowed me to want to get back into the black community. And I just started reading everything, half reading, I should say, because I got a lot of books I've half read. But it was enough to get me started to say, man, black folks are great people.
We really are.
Think about all the stuff we've been through, and like Maya Angelou and Still We Rise. So if I could put that seed in a young black person or a young kid, or teach a white person, the deal is you have to want to receive this information. If you don't want to hear it, you won't hear it, black or white. But I think that's what we need now. We need to have more people sharing the paths with these young people and make it interesting so they'll listen. And hopefully they'll have that yearning to learn, and they'll become the next generation that's doing good stuff versus money, sex, drugs, and that kind of thing.
Yes. Wow. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for
again.
having me. Thank you.
And staying on my show.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. And I want to thank each and every one of you for watching my show, A Better You, here on Public Access 21 every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You are wonderful.